Welcome to Big Sky Country. We're here at the University of Montana for the Western qualifier of the Steel Timbersports Collegiate Challenge. I'm Kevin Holtz. Alongside me is Dave Jewett, professional Timbersports competitor. Now Dave, you and I walked around, we were talking to a lot of these competitors. What's your impression of the field?
Well, they all seem to know what they're doing, but there's a few of them that seem to be a little more focused than the other ones. One of the competitors that comes to mind is David Green, Central Oregon Community College. He just seems to be confident. He's talking about, hey, I've played baseball, I've played golf, and I can associate that swing with chopping wood. And a lot of competitors don't think about something like that. And then it comes down to stock saw. We've all seen, hey, 2 cuts within 4 inches of wood sounds easy. A lot of guys make mistakes. It's going to come down to that.
We talked to other guys like Rod Cochran. He was mentioning his training regimen, and the one thing we noticed that was different here from other regions, these guys are training on bigger wood.
That's right, Kevin, we're cutting 12.5-inch underhands here, and we walked up and said, are you used to this big wood? They said, oh, we train on wood like this all the time, but they said it's hard to get the wood right now. Record snowfall, 15 feet of snow. They've had trouble getting cottonwood to train on, but they've been to 3 to 4 shows leading up to this, so I think they're ready for that competitive atmosphere.
Okay, we've got some focused competitors that are used to competing on the larger diameter wood. Let's get the action started and see how it sorts out. Crowd's ready to go here in Montana. We're going to get things started with the underhand chop.
My name's Andreas Hespelt from the University of Nevada, Reno, and my major is forestry.
Andreas is going to be up against David Green from Central Oregon in this first heat of the underhand chop.
They've hand-peeled these aspen logs down to around 13 inches, Kevin, and this is hardwood, a lot harder than the white pine we're used to on the East Coast.
3, 2, 1, go!
You see Andreas down there on the far side in the gray shirt, Dave, starting with the axe high in the air. I'm not so sure about that technique.
Well, even before they started, it looked to me like David Green knew what he was doing a little more. He's got chalk on his handle, making sure that handle's going to slide easy through his hands, and he's got those flat-soled Aussie-style chopping shoes on, so he knows how to chop an underhand. But it looks like he's sticking a little, maybe too thin of an edge on that axe.
And I noticed both these guys are opening up some knots in these poplar blocks, but the knots in this wood not as important as the knots in pine.
Oh, that's right. The knots are a little more forgiving, and they were saying they had a record snowfall, 15 feet. They had trouble even getting to wood to train, but it looks like David Green is hitting his lines pretty well. Andreas not too far behind, though.
And Andreas is posting a good cut, but it's not going to be good enough. David Green finishes that block and definitively wins this heat.
My name is Pat Johnson from the University of Montana, and I'm a Forest Resource Management major.
And in this second heat, Pat Johnson is going to be up against Rod Cochran from the University of Idaho.
Rod Cochran's got to be a little quicker on the gun there. He missed about a half a swing, but he's got a good pace on, reaching that bottom wood real well, which we're not seeing in some of the other competitors. He lost his balance, though.
Dave, let's talk about body style of these two competitors. Pat Johnson being tall, lanky, reaching way high in the air. Rodney being a little bit shorter, but a pretty built guy.
And even though Rod was a little slow on the start, he is first to turn, but did he get enough work out of the front side of the log? Pat is not too far behind him. They're chasing 46 seconds, Kevin.
And Pat's axe is cutting very well. It's free in the block. It's driving right to the handle every single time. I think Pat knows he's behind. He's going to play catch-up.
Yeah, and that is half the game, is having the equipment to win. You can't win without a good axe.
Both these guys finishing on the same blow. We're going to have to go to the official timers on this to see who's going to get the win.
And Pat Johnson's log closest to us is a little bit longer. It hangs over the stand, actually pries itself apart. That may have aided him in the win.
Well, Pat, a win in the second heat of the underhand chop, but there's still 2 events left to go. What are you thinking about the rest of this day?
I'm just trying to save my energy for the single buck.
Hi, I'm Madison Thompson. I'm from UC Berkeley, and I'm a third-year senior forestry major.
Madison's going to be up against Jared Falmer from Humboldt State University.
3, 2, 1, go!
Dave, we saw this in the first heat. We're seeing it here again in the second heat. Jared Falmer starting with the axe up over his head.
Yeah, it's just personal preference. Some guys just like to have it cocked and locked up there. Other guys like to follow the cadence and bring it up on the countdown. Either way, He's not going to beat Madison Thompson here. I just don't see it happening. Madison's got a good pace. He's following a pattern where Jared just seems to be throwing it in anywhere he wants.
Jared also having some difficulties with the axe sticking in the block down there in the green shirt and does not have much of a pace. Madison Thompson is turning already far ahead of Jared Falmer.
Yeah, he stepped over his log. I want to also mention Jared here. It's got those aluminum foot guards. Madison, you don't see any. That's because he has a chainmail sock underneath those flat-soled shoes, and that's the most modern-day way of chopping, and it's a lot more comfortable.
Madison just got to work the bottom of this block out, which he does already. Madison Thompson is off. Well, Madison, a little bit of a mismatch in size in that last heat, but you pulled out the win. How important is technique in this event?
Super important. You can be big and strong, but if you can't hit your lines and you can't get power, you're not going anywhere.
Madison's going somewhere all right. He made it into 4th place so far in the underhand chop. Remember Pat Johnson and Rod Cochran there. You see him at the top of the board. Only 1/100th of a second separating those two. When we come back, we're going to finish up the underhand chop and move into the stock saw event. The Steel Timbersports Collegiate Challenge, presented by Carhartt, is brought to you by Steel, maker of a full line of handheld outdoor power equipment, and by Carhartt, the makers of Work Drive. Welcome back to the Western Regional Qualifier of the Steel Timbersports Collegiate Challenge here at the University of Montana. In addition to the 3 collegiate challenge disciplines, there's a whole host of events going on as part of the 69th Annual Association of Western Forestry Clubs Conclave.
I'm Perry Brown. I'm Dean of the College of Forestry and Conservation at the University of Montana, Missoula, in a wonderful outdoor laboratory completely surrounded by mountains and water. We're a broad college of natural resources, basically. So we have very, very strong and very old programs in forestry, forest management, but we also have a general conservation degree that we offer to students that are interested in a broad environmental degree focused on natural resources. But they're engaged in a lot of other ways, both in the classroom and in activities.
The University of Montana showed they have the most well-rounded lumberjacks and lumberjills by dominating the conclave events, making them the Carhartt Western Conclave champions. The University of Montana is also extending their dominance to the Steel Timbersports Collegiate Challenge. Pat Johnson is leading the underhand chop as we move into the last heat.
My name is Adrian Flick from Colorado State University, and I'm a philosophy graduate student.
Adrian Flick is up against our only female competitor, Nicole Bonneman from Cal Poly.
1, go!
And Adrian, competing for Colorado State, is actually on a team that was started by Finger Lakes Community College students that moved out west from the East Coast.
Well, Dave, let's talk a little bit about Adrian Flick. He hasn't been chopping that long, but he's the only graduate student in this event. Do you think the years are going to help him out or hurt him?
Well, he used to be a huge guy. He said he lost 100 pounds to get into wood chopping. He used to be a football player. Look how he slabbed that log on the opening blow all the way to the end. He's got a huge swing, and he's calm today, too.
Yeah, I think the age is really paying out. He's settled in on this block. He's not panicky up there. His footing is sure. And also Nicole Bonneman, we got to send props out to her. She's staying with this chop. She's going to work through this block to the finish.
Now, this is not an easy log for a man or woman. 13 inches of aspen, but look at that. Adrian off in maybe a winning time.
Adrian looked like a real solid cut in that underhand chop. We've got 2 events left, the stock saw and the single buck. What are your thoughts going into those events?
The stock saw I'm excited for. I run a 440 steel like that. I've enjoyed that saw for a good long time. I'd like to single buck with that and power saw with that if that's possible. Single buck and 19 inches of wood isn't exactly my top 10 favorite things to do, but we'll get after it today.
Calm, cool, and collected. Adrian Flick posts a 42.71. That's good enough for a win in the underhand chop, bumping Pat Johnson and Rod Cochran down to 2nd and 3rd place respectively as we move into the stock saw event. So Don Quigley giving the final instructions to our first 2 competitors in the stock saw event. We've got Andreas Hespelt and David Green. Dave, in this event, the key word seems to be smooth with these operators.
Yeah, they want to keep the RPMs up, and David Green, he cut out at the bottom, but himself, and Andreas already, on go, he was watching the head.
Oh, now Andreas is cut out as well. We got problems on both ends.
Looks like both competitors are facing a DQ.
Well, David Green, a solid cut in the underhand. It got you that 4th place finish overall, but things did not go well in the stock saw. What went wrong?
Just cut out on my down cut. You know, I just tried to do too thin of a cookie. I thought I had a good cookie, but unfortunately cut out and had a good cut up, but it didn't matter. So that's just the way it goes sometimes.
My name is Rodney Cochran. I'm from the University of Idaho, and I'm a forest products major.
Well, Rod brought his whole cheering section in for this first heat of the stock saw event. He's up against Pat Johnson from the University of Montana. And Dave, we saw these guys go head-to-head in the underhand chop, 1/100th of a second separating them.
Well, this is going to be 16 inches of aspen. This is going to be a little harder than, like the white pine that we saw on the East Coast. You got to keep the RPMs up on these saws.
On your mark, get set, go!
The go signal from Jet. Oh, in trouble for Rodney Cochran. It looks like he might have gone down and hit the kill switch. Maybe shoved it down to the choke position. He's already behind it. Now he's looking over at the other stand, Dave.
This is what happens when you go into the stock saw being complacent. They both know how to run saws, but you got to be focused.
Well, these guys were so close in the underhand chop, but here in the stock saw, Rodney just hands the win to Pat Johnson. Well, Rod, not the smoothest start in stock saw history. What happened there?
It appears that I put the switch down before I made my cut and had to restart the saw in the middle. So,
Pat, you got a clean run in. How important is that to you in terms of points?
oh well, this is one of those events where you got to make a clean run. It's pretty easy to DQ, so satisfied with the clean run. Just got to keep it moving.
My name is Jared Fulmar. I go to Humboldt State University, and I'm a forest production major.
In this next heat of the stock saw, Jared is up against Madison Thompson from University of California at Berkeley.
And they are going to be chasing Pat Johnson's time of 16.25.
Get set, go!
Now, Dave, we saw these two guys match up in the underhand chop. A distinct size difference between the two of them, but the stock saw is the great equalizer.
Madison was into the wood a little faster, but Jared on the far stand fanned on it. Then Madison fanned on it. This is now an even race coming up through the top of the log.
Both these guys with difficulties in the switch, but Jared is going to pull through the cut quicker. Jared is going to win the heat. Not the smoothest cut in the world. A little bit of bobble there on the change, but you picked it up in the second cut. Have you spent a lot of time with the saw in your hands?
Our team actually cuts a lot of firewood every year, so I'm out sawing the woods. I use still chainsaws on all of our wood cuts we do. So I got quite a bit of time with saw in the hand. It's always a little different when competition because you got to go fast and you got to make sure you're accurate, so it's a little different.
Jared started out with a tough run in the underhand chop. With a 16-second time, he's currently in the lead in this stock saw event with only one heat left to go. We'll see that right after this. Welcome back to the Western Regional Qualifier for the Steel Timbersports Collegiate Challenge. We're here at Big Sky Country at the University of Montana, and we're going to pick back up with the action with the last heat of the stock saw event.
Hello, my name is Nicole Bonema from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I'm Ag Business Marketing.
I mentioned earlier, Nicole is our only female competitor here, and I'd have to say the stock saw event is probably her best chance to shine. She's going to be up against Adrian Flick from Colorado State University.
And Adrian Flick got to the saw fast, but he kind of hovered over the wood a little bit, lining it up, maybe just making a sure cut going into the single buck.
He's ahead at the change. Difficulties for Nicole Bonneman over there. She's going to cut out. She's got to go back.
But look at Adrian Flick motoring through the top around the 16-second time. We got 4 times already in the 16 seconds with Jared Fulmar leading it. You know Jared is watching on, seeing if his time's going to hold.
Well, Adrian, a win in the underhand chop. We move on to the stock saw. Are you thinking about that last event as you moved into the stock saw?
Yes, sir, I was. I'm thinking about the single buck since I started this. The underhand, I knew I needed to just get over my nerves and beat on it. The stock saw, I needed to make some clean cookies. And the single buck, that's something I don't train as hard as I ought to. I know that Pat and Rod are both good sawyers, so is the gentleman from Oregon State, and so I'm nervous. All those guys can cut well, and I'm looking at 19 inches of larch, and I'm shaking a little bit, so.
Well, Adrian joins that 16-second club, and look at this. All top 5 times within 0.6 of a second of each other. That's some of the best stock sawing we've seen all year. And turning our attention to the Carhartt overall points board, there you have it. Adrian Flick on top of the pile with that first place and second place finish. Right on his heels, Pat Johnson with 17 points. And back in third place, we've got a two-way tie between Rod Cochran and Madison Thompson. Any one of these guys could step up and take the championship as we move into the single buck event. Well, the first heat of the single buck event, David Green is going to be going up against Andreas Hespelt.
3, 2, 1, go!
Well, this might be a college competition, but they're competing on professional-sized wood. This is 19 inches of larch, hard larch, and they're sawing on top of all that with an old manufactured crosscut saw, but that's the rule on the West Coast here, Kevin.
Yeah, and these guys will be posting some long times. This is much more of an endurance event than we've seen on the East Coast. I think we'll be lucky to see times under 1 minute.
These are Simons 503s, are anywhere from 6 to 7.5 feet in length, but they do have a modern-day filing on them to speed them up a little bit. What about the water he's spraying on those saws, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that technique. Typically, you'd be spraying some kind of oil on there to dissolve the resin or dissolve the pitch. I don't think that water's giving him any advantage at all.
But I like the stroke David Green has here, using the whole saw. He's keeping it level. Oh, but he hung a raker there, lifted a little too much, getting too anxious at the bottom of that log.
Well, he's about to push through, and David Green makes me eat my words, coming in under 50 seconds. That's going to be a great time on this wood. Well, David, a tough break in the stock saw event, but it looked like a real clean, smooth cut in the single buck.
It went pretty well, you know. I had my rhythm going. Unfortunately, you know, down towards the end, I got caught, so I probably lost a couple seconds there. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with it. The saw was working pretty good, pretty well. Hopefully, it will be enough. But if it's not, you know, it's just the way it goes, and maybe next year.
Well, in this next heat, Jen Benedict, team captain for the University of Montana, will be working as the second for Pat Johnson. Pat's going to be up against Rod Cochran from the University of Idaho.
And in this event, you need a good pit crew. Get the wedge in, spray the oil on the saw. When you're sawing for a minute, you want that encouragement.
Well, Dave, here once again, you see Rod Cochran looking around at the start. Oh, and he hangs the saw up. This guy has got to get focused at the start of these events.
These are 7-foot-plus saws, and the older saws like these, they're not as thick a gauge. They tend to be flimsy, and when you're running a long saw like that, it's easy to hang a raker. Pat Johnson looks like he's about a third of the way through that cut. Now he's getting into the big wood, and he's hanging. He's got to get his hands closer together on the handle, too. It helps you to get a little better control, and fatigue is starting to set in. There's Wedger Jen getting the spray on the saw, helping to free it up.
Well, fatigue does not seem to be an issue for Rod Cochran. Look at this man. He is settled in, he is sawing well, and he's got a pace that he can keep.
And when you're sawing a large piece of larch like this, you want to have perfect technique. These saws are flat. You don't want to lift them up that much, because all that does is lift the teeth off the log.
And Dave, we got to keep in mind, Pat Johnson was sitting in second place as we came into this single buck event. Rod Cochran was right behind him. Both of these guys are hungry for Carhartt overall points. Both of these guys want to win.
And Pat's lack of technique is costing him at the bottom of his log. Look at Rod Cochran down at the end. He's about to drive off, Kevin.
Rod Cochran does drive off ahead of Pat Johnson. That's going to give him some valuable points. That is one happy camper right there. Rod, it looked like a smooth, steady cut in the single buck. How did the larch treat you today?
It treated me a lot better than I thought it would. I was afraid to be tight grain, but after the stock saw, I just needed to get a time going, so that's about it.
Well, congratulations on a smooth, clean run, and we'll see how the points shake out. Rod Cochran picked up some much-needed Carhartt overall points. On the other hand, tragedy strikes for Pat Johnson. He really needed a strong showing in the single buck event if he was going to catch Adrian Flick. When we come back, we'll wrap up the single buck event and crown our Western Regional Champion. The Steel Timbersports Collegiate Challenge, presented by Carhartt, is brought to you by Steel, the #1 selling chainsaw worldwide, and by Carhartt, the official workwear of the Steel Timbersports Collegiate Challenge. Welcome back to the Steel Timbersports Collegiate Challenge, presented by Carhartt. We're here in Big Sky Country at the University of Montana for the Western Regional Qualifier. We're going to jump right back into the action with the single buck event, where in this next heat, we've got Madison Thompson up against Jared Fulmar, and all eyes are on Madison Thompson, who's in a tie for third place with Rod Cochran.
3, 2, 1, go!
Each competitor gets a 12-inch starting cut to make sure that saw is going straight through the woods. It conserves wood, plus it makes it easier to run. But you know what? They also have an advantage. They've watched the rest of the field go. They know what time they have to beat, and they know how this wood is going to cut.
Well, they know the time they have to beat, and they're both gunning for it. Both these guys doing a beautiful job running this entire saw. The chips are flying, Dave. We've got two great cuts going on here.
Madison's got a great pace going on. The wedge just went in. That wedge probably could have been in that cut a little bit earlier, but you can hear his helper there yelling to breathe. Keep breathing, because that's so important.
Well, Big Jared Fulmar is definitely moving some oxygen, Dave. A full minute without oxygen is going to really cause your muscles to cramp up.
Both these competitors running saws that have been cut down. They're a little bit shorter, and that's helping them maintain that pace at the bottom of the log. Both cutting a lot of wood on the backstroke, too. There could be one. Oh, and it's Madison Thompson taking the win.
Well, Madison, we talked earlier about the importance of technique in this single buck event on this big larch. How did that pan out for you?
Panned out pretty well. My cut it was a little slower than I might have liked, but it was still pretty fast. I felt like my form was good. I didn't collapse like I did earlier this week, so that's always a good thing. It ran well. I had a good cut. See how it pans out.
Well, Madison picks up those much-needed Carhartt overall points and manages to pull away from Rod Cochran, getting himself out of that third-place slot. But don't forget, Adrian Flick was our points leader coming into this event. He's up in this next heat against Nicole Bonema.
And for the first time today, Adrian Flick is feeling the pressure. In this event, he doesn't have to win it. He doesn't even have to beat Madison Thompson. He just has to do sixth place or better.
3, 2, 1, go!
And that's going to take a time just around that 1 minute mark. We'll see if Adrian Flick he's already off to some serious difficulties. This could be the turning point for Adrian Flick. He may not be our new champion.
Well, he's going to have to settle down a little. It looks like he's done. His pace is slow, maybe too slow. I think he got a little rattled after hanging the rakers on that first stroke.
Well, nerves are definitely playing in here, but Dave, I still got faith in our senior competitor out here, the graduate student. I think he can get his head around this and pull off the time he needs.
And Adrian is hitting the center of the log. Now, the biggest part, as we said, the fatigue is setting in. You know, at the World Championships, the women only cut 16 inches. Nicole's cutting 19 inches and cutting beautifully.
And Dave, that's 16 inches of white pine with a handmade custom saw. This is larch with a factory Simon saw.
Yeah, this really shows you who knows how to saw. She's going to have a future in this sport. But what's going on down at that far end with Adrian? Is he going to get this log off or not?
Time is ticking away. He's definitely not going to win. He's definitely not going to beat Madison. But remember, he's just got to finish sixth or better. Another hang-up, and finally Adrian Flick pulls off this cut. Well, clearly not the most blistering cut out there. Finishing mid-pack, 5th place, Adrian Flick gets the job done, picking up just enough Carhartt overall points to make him our Western Regional Champion. Adrian, congratulations. I'm going to let you tell the story. How did this day go for you?
Oh, this went well. The underhand is usually what I pride myself on and what I've really been practicing. And so I was expecting that to go well. I had a real crummy block in competition and kind of had to get my nerves and hit well and try to chop downhill, hit slow and build up. The stock saw, as I said, I'm pretty comfortable with the chainsaw. I was a little bit nervous about making clean cookies, but knew I needed to just get a clean run. And the single buck went real well. That was a big surprise. That was a pleasant surprise, I guess, in that regard. We're not always training stuff as competitively, and so to have a cut like that today, when the lot was on the line, was really good, and especially to end it. It felt like that was a solid punctuation to a good performance on the others too. So
this round is done. We'll look forward to big things from Adrian as we move on to the finals and the championships. Well, congratulations once again to Adrian Flick, your Western Regional Champion. In honor of Adrian's win, Steel will be donating a $1,000 scholarship to a program of Adrian's choice. Make sure you join us next time when Adrian will meet up with the other regional champions for the Steel Timbersports Collegiate Championships in Columbus, Georgia. For Dave Jewett, I'm Kevin Holtz, and we'll see you there. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.